In today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up your comic book page using a template. Welcome back to Spectre Comics. If this is your first time here, I'm Mike, and thanks for watching. In my previous video, I gave 5 tips for starting your comic book project, and one of the tips was using an on-demand comic book printer template to set up your pages before you start drawing anything. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And for more tips from that video, I've linked it in the description below. Okay, so in order to set up your pages before you start drawing anything, you're going to want to download a template. And what I like to do is I have an account with Ka-Blam, which is a digital comic book printer online. I can simply go to their website. I set up a free account. I can go right to their resources page and download a template. They have several sizes. I choose the magazine size template, so we'll click on that. Before we continue with that, though, I want to say that they're not the only on-demand printer there is. There's a bunch of different companies. By doing a search, you can do on-demand comic book printing and bring up a bunch of different companies that do this. They may not all have the same types of resources. I don't know if all of them have a template that you can just download. Some of them just provide information like make sure your page is this big and this tall and this wide and has a border of this. You have to create your own template. What I like about Ka-Blam's website is they create a template that you can just download and insert into your graphics editor and then build your pages off of that. So you can see here they've got a template file that has a lot of information on it. This page that I use is 8 1/4 by 10 3/4 inches. And to download this file, just click on it, brings up this page. If you right click, you can save image as, and then you can save it right to your desktop. 2010 magazine template is the name of the file, and PNG image, it's a PNG file. I've already saved this, so I'm not going to save it here again, but we've downloaded the file. It shows up on your desktop. Here, I got it right here. By right clicking, I can open that in my graphics editor. I use Photoshop Elements, and it'll bring up the page, and you can see that it's a transparent PNG file. That's why you see the checkerboards behind. And in order to make it a little clearer, I'll usually create a layer of white and just fill it in with the paint bucket. And now the checkerboard goes away. I can read the page pretty easily. And then the next thing I want to do is create a layer that goes over this called panel, and this is going to be the layer that creates the border around the page. Now, if we zoom in just into the template a little bit, we can see that the red area represents the trim line. This is the area that's going to get cut off when they do the trim, when they print your book and then they trim it so all the pages are the same size. They basically cut off anything that's in the red. Anything in the yellow area is your margin, and that's the area between your panels and the edge of the page. And unless you have something that kind of goes off the page, kind of breaks through the panel and goes off the page, you don't want anything in there or to draw anything in there. And your live area, or your area that your panels will be in, is the blue. So what I like to do is I turn my ruler on in Photoshop, and I can drag some guidelines down to the edge of the page. And I do that on all 4 sides of the blue area. And now I have 4 guidelines, and I notice right here my guideline's not quite to the edge, so I can kind of zoom in and use the move tool to kind of line it up exactly where I want it. And now if I zoom out, I have these 4 guidelines and my template together. So I created this layer called panel. I want to give the panel an effect called a stroke. So if I go down to styles here, I can bring up strokes from this pull down menu. And I usually choose the second one. And if I click that, it'll add that feature to my layer. And if I click the effects on that layer, it'll bring up this little menu. And you can see stroke is checked. It gives me certain options. It gives me the size of the border that the stroke is going to be. It's going to give me the position of where the stroke is. It's going to be in or outside or centered on the marquee that I pull up in a minute. And then you can give it an opacity. I usually leave it at 100%. Now I want it to be on the inside of the marquee. And I prefer my panel border to be 6. So if I hit OK, now this effect is in effect. And by going back to the guidelines, I can now use the marquee tool, just stretch that across. It should snap right to the guidelines. And then I can fill that in with, select a white paint bucket and the white, and now it'll create a panel border with a stroke on it. So the stroke is the black line. I can clear my guidelines now, and I can turn off the marquee by deselecting. And now I have a page with a border. Now I can turn off the template layer, and now I have this page. And what's nice about this is now I can print this page out and I can do all my sketching on it. And I brought a sample here of a page I did that's just been sketched. And so this is me kind of laying out my panels using, using a printed out sheet with the border on it. Now it's not about the size, but it's about the proportion, because now I can cut this right, I can cut this right out of this image by using the marquee and doing a copy. I can go back to my template page and I can paste it right in. And right now you're seeing the layer on top of the border, and they should be pretty close, but it's slightly off. So I can just make it transparent, and then I can kind of use the move tool to kind of align my sketched page with my border page, and it looks to be pretty close, which is good. If it happens to be off a little more, you can select that file and you'll get these little grips, and you can slide them in and out and get it to the size you need it to be. So now I have my border page, I have my sketched layer, which is this layer 2 of my pencil drawings, and I can create new layers that I ink on. So if I say go to one of the characters, I can now start inking right on this sketch. And I'm just doing a little quick example here, but and then once I'm done, once I have a final sketch, I can go ahead and just turn off the sketch, and I have a nice clean layer. I don't have to clean up the pencils. I don't have to erase anything. And I continue to do that till I get a page like this, which is more of a final image. This is a page that I'm working on now. And if I turn off my sketch layer, you get a nice clean drawing straight, so basically you can go from sketches straight to inks by using this method. Now, you don't have to use a graphics program if you do everything by hand, where you just print out a page and you draw right on the page in pencils and then you ink right on the page. That's fine. This is just a method that I would use if you're using Photoshop or drawing on a tablet like I'm doing here. Another good thing about the template is that if I turn off, let's turn the panel back on. So we're working on our panels here. So now, let's say I have my sketch layer in here, and you can see I've kind of drawn the panels on the page, just kind of sketched them in. But let's say I want to create my panels here before I start inking. I can go back to my panel layer, and then I can create, stretch the marquee across. And then if I delete, so again, I'm on the panel layer here. If I delete, it'll automatically create the border. If I turn the sketch layer off, you can see that my panel borders are just automatically created right in there. So by having that panel layer on top of the background, and I can draw on top of this now, so my inks will show up in my panels then. My borders will be nice and clean and sharp lines. And again, you can adjust the stroke to have a thicker panel border or a thinner panel border, whichever you like. But I love this method because it's very easy to create all the panels on this page really quick without having to line everything up. It automatically lines up. It'll automatically clear. I can use my guidelines if I want again. Let's say I want every page to have the same horizontal band. I could just kind of drag this down, delete, delete, and you see how quickly I'm just creating, the borders on each panel. And if I mess up, I can easily just fill it back in with the paint bucket. Let's say I want to fill that back in, select white paint, and it'll automatically fill in, and I can do it again. Or I can start all over. So that's just an easy way of setting up your pages, creating something you can print and sketch on. Again, this is a good starting step so that when you're ready to complete a page, everything is already set up properly and ready to go. It's a good thing to do this legwork ahead of time so that you don't have to do it at the end, because it's much harder to fit everything at the end once the page is all laid out than at the beginning when you can start out fresh with a clean, correctly proportioned page. Well, that's all for this video. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. If you liked the content and thought it was helpful, please click the thumbs up button. If you have anything to share, any tips to add, put them in the comment section below. I'll have links to anything I talked about in this video in the section below as well. And I'll also have links to my Spectre Comics website, Twitter's, Facebook, Instagram, also down there. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.